This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
The World Health Organization experts being expected in Beijing as Africa records its first coronavirus case in Egypt. Lawmakers call for a state of emergency to be declared in Nigeria to effectively tackle the Boko Haram insurgency. And a unique way of spreading love brings some cheer to street children in Ghana. Hello and thank you for joining us on Africa Live. I am Peninah Karibe. Also coming up this hour, the UN Economic Commission on Africa hosts the third Africa Business Forum, and why thousands of Zimbabweans could be in danger of starvation and what needs to be done. We start with the latest on the coronavirus outbreak. The total number of confirmed cases in China is now over 66,500. The death toll has reached over 1,500, while over 8,000 have recovered. The number of new confirmed cases in both Hubei province and Wuhan city dropped about 50% from Thursday to Friday. Guangdong, Zhejiang and Henan provinces are the most affected areas outside Hubei, with each reporting more than 1,100 cases. Beijing has reported more than 370 cases and Shanghai over 320. The virus has spread to 25 other countries which have reported more than 500 cases. Meanwhile, in Japan, authorities have announced the country's first death, while 218 people aboard a cruise ship off Yokohama are confirmed to have the virus. Meanwhile, Chinese health authorities say experts from the World Health Organization are scheduled to arrive in Beijing this weekend to assist with the efforts to overcome the epidemic. Let's hear more details.
On consultation between China and WHO, experts from the WHO and other countries will arrive in Beijing on the weekend. Previously, China discussed with the advanced team of WHO headed by Dr. Bruce Aylward. There has been in-depth discussion between the two sides. There has been some bilateral agreement on the agenda and the key research areas of the joint mission. The joint mission will work with the departments under the Joint Prevention and Control Mechanism and conduct an in-depth discussion, and will carry out field visits in 3 provinces and cities to learn about the prevention control measures in city and rural areas and the efficacy. They will also visit the epidemiological institutions, the labs, and also hospitals, research institutions, and put forward their suggestions for China's efforts.
Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi has addressed the coronavirus outbreak as well as the U.S. travel ban on Chinese citizens amid the epidemic.
This is something all Chinese people are involved in. Each person will pitch in and will play their part. As a country under the strong leadership of President Xi Jinping, great efforts are being made to ensure the health and safety of the Chinese people. I do see one issue that will come up in the future. That is, given the U.S. ban on the exchange of people between the two countries, that will bring up some challenges to the implementation of the agreement. We hope the United States is reflecting on that matter. So right now, we will continue to fight the disease.
The Vice Minister of the National Health Commission, Wang Hesheng, has briefed the media on how authorities are trying to control and treat the epidemic in Wuhan. He was appointed as a member of the party's Hubei Provincial Committee last Sunday. Our reporter Tang Bo has more.
The State Council held a routine press conference this morning in Wuhan to brief on the epidemic control and prevention work so far in Hubei province, where officials and specialists from the National Health Commission as well as Hubei provincial government participated and met with media. Now, the press conference touched upon supporting medical teams from other provinces, municipalities, as well as military, makeshift cabin hospitals, and new confirmed cases, and the timing of using ECMO, a medical device that can help patients breathe without using their lungs. Now, so far, supporting medical teams by the end of Friday, in total 200 and 17 of them with over 50,000 medical workers have already arrived in Hubei, and among which about 118 medical teams have, with over 20,000 medical workers have already right here in Wuhan to help. And also there are 9 cabin hospitals ready, and the government is working on renovate more gyms and also other new facilities to convert normal, ordinary hospital wards into those makeshift hospitals to try to host more patients. And let's take a listen at what the Vice Minister of the National Health Commission has to say about this.
在提高收治率方面，
We will manage all patients by category. If the case is serious, the patient should be treated in a designated hospital. If one has mild symptoms, he or she will be treated in a makeshift hospital. Suspected cases could be treated and observed in quarantine points. We've changed a number of gymnasiums, exhibition centres and training centres into makeshift hospitals. At present, we've opened 9 makeshift hospitals with more than 6,900 beds. And these hospitals have received over 5,600 patients.
Egypt has confirmed its first coronavirus case, which makes it the first recorded case on the African continent. The country said the affected person was a foreigner who had been put in isolation at a medical center. The Health Ministry said in a statement that it had immediately informed the World Health Organization and had taken all necessary preventative measures. It did not give the nationality of the affected person or any other details. There are dozens of African students studying in China. Many have been advised to stay indoors to avoid contracting the coronavirus. A former Rwandan citizen who studied in China has conveyed his sympathy over the current situation in China.
We are praying for you. Chinese people, they are our friends, and we even sent an encouragement message officially from our organization to the embassy to encourage Chinese people to win this battle.
In 2012, Theoneste Higaniro returned to Rwanda after graduating from China's Northeast Electric Power University. He currently is the chairman of the Rwanda-China Alumni Organization. This is a platform that is made of members who once studied in China. After the outbreak of coronavirus, on behalf of the organization, Theoneste has sent a condolence letter to the Chinese embassy in Rwanda and has offered words of encouragement to the people of China.
I do believe in the Chinese government that they are doing whatever they can to contain this virus, and I'm sure they will win this battle. Chinese people should not use this opportunity maybe to showcase their anger against the government or saying that they are not doing their best. So the government is doing whatever they can, and what I can tell Chinese people is to keep spirit of fighting together to contain this expansion of this coronavirus.
The World Health Organization chief says the Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo is nearing its end, but the WHO is urging healthcare workers to remain vigilant until no new case is reported. Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus made the remarks in the DRC capital Kinshasa, where he is attending a health conference. CGTN's Chris Ochamringa has more.
The Director General of the World Health Organization is cautious about contracting the Ebola virus in the DRC. Handshakes have been discouraged because the disease is highly contagious. Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus' visit comes 2 days after the WHO extended the health emergency status of the Ebola outbreak.
Ebola has declined really significantly, and it's almost being finished actually. And we're at the end of the tunnel now. But at the same time, because of the security condition in Eastern DRC, even one case could trigger serious problems. So for me, it's like taking a caution, saying it's not over until it's over, even the last case.
The DRC government is hosting an international conference that seeks to improve the country's healthcare system. Decades of conflict and corruption have blighted the DRC's healthcare system, but the government says it's determined to change the way things are done.
The fight against corruption is my priority in the health ministry. Just a few days ago, I ordered an inquiry into a case where money was stolen. The key suspects have been arrested.
The DRC president is set to endorse the roadmap that the Congolese and international health experts will design for improving the health sector. The DRC is grappling with many epidemics that have killed thousands of people over the past 2 years. International partners hope the new strategies for building a stronger healthcare system will stop the deaths of Congolese citizens from preventable diseases. Chris Sochamringa, CGTN, Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of Congo.
Nigeria has among the lowest blood donation rates in the world, with just 10% of the population donating voluntarily, while over 50% do it for money. The net effect is that Nigeria's blood bank suffers from blood shortage. But One Health initiative is using technology to address the problem in a very creative way. CGTN's Deji Badmas tells us more.
Scenes like these are not common in Nigeria. Everyone donating blood here is doing so for free. It's part of a drive by the One Health initiative to galvanize people to voluntarily donate blood in a country where there are more commercial than voluntary blood donors.
We still do not have enough blood because we need more awareness. We need more, people like HIMA Health Initiative, more of them to partner with us to evangelize the importance of blood donation.
Nigeria has one of the highest maternal mortality rate in the world. A high percentage of women die during childbirth as a result of loss of too much blood. The women don't get blood at their critical hour of need, so they die. It's a similar story for those who suffer from sickle cell anemia. They often struggle to get badly needed blood for transfusion. It's for this very reason the One Health initiative was born.
What we basically do, we help link patients with voluntary donors. We have a database of voluntary donors. So whenever there's a request, they send the request to us and we help link these voluntary donors to the patients through calls, social medias as well. Then our family and friends as well. We started with just family and friends, then we moved on to social media, then the database.
Ikechukwu himself is a sickle cell patient and knows firsthand how challenging it could be to get blood. But by connecting blood donors to recipients, the process is now a lot less stressful for patients. And through their initiative, more people are beginning to embrace voluntary blood donation. But he warns that there is still a long way to go.
As at now, there is still a huge gap to be covered because annually, what we need for the nation, Nigeria, is about 2 million pints of blood. And we haven't been able to get up to 10% of that mark.
The One Health initiative now has about 2,000 voluntary blood donors signed up on their mobile platform and website, ready and available to donate blood to patients who may need them. And to date, they've been able to collect and distribute 1,500 pints of blood to hospitals around the country.
Saving life has always been our motivation. Seeing life being rescued, not just the sickle cell warrior people alone, but every individual that needs blood. We all need blood to live.
Through its modest efforts, the One Health initiative has saved several lives and helped in building reserves at the National Blood Bank. For now, it operates across just 8 of Nigeria's 36 states. The founders plan to expand across the country. They are also currently constructing an Uber-like app to match donors to recipients. Deji Badmos, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
You're watching Africa Live. Time for us to take a quick break. Here's what's coming up. Lawmakers call for a state of emergency to be declared in Nigeria to effectively tackle the Boko Haram insurgency. And a unique way of spreading love brings some cheer to street children in Ghana.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself? If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Nigeria is my home. 160 million vibrant, ambitious individuals constantly seeking the perfect self-expression. It is these people who inspired me to be that person that is seen, to be a voice that is heard, and ultimately to be the anchor that I am. I have to tap in, tune in, and turn on the very best qualities within me to deliver the news. I'm Richard Nta, an anchor for CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
According to a report released by the Global Rights International, more than 2,000 Nigerians were killed by violence last year. The country is dealing with an insurgency by the militant group Boko Haram, as well as criminal violence. Ifyoke Tang reports from Jos, central Nigeria.
According to the Global Rights International, more than 200 people were killed in each month from January to September last year as a result of violence. The deaths were largely the result of Boko Haram insurgency in the northeast, the rise of criminal bandit gangs in Nigeria's northwest, and the farmer-herder clashes in the Middle Belt region. June recorded the highest amount of violent killings, claiming 504 lives. According to the report, 2,707 of those killed were civilians, 481 were security operatives. The report also stated that the number of killings in 2019 were 7% lower when compared to 2018. In January of this year, as many as 245 persons were killed in violent attacks across Nigeria, according to domestic news sources. The Nigerian Senate has asked President Muhammadu Buhari to sack service chiefs and to declare a national state of emergency on security as a result of violence. The presidency is yet to respond to this call. However, Buhari's office maintains that the security situation is better now than it was before he took office in 2015. The Nigerian government says it is seeking a restructuring of the security architecture in the country to enable it fight insecurity. Ifyoke Etang, CGTN, Jos, Nigeria.
Meanwhile, Nigeria's House of Representatives has called for a state of emergency on national security. This comes as Boko Haram insurgents continue to stage a series of attacks in the northeastern region. This resolution was reached following a motion to investigate the recent killings of 30 travelers by Boko Haram terrorists. CGTN's Kelechi Mekalam reports.
Nigeria's security concern forms the heart of conversations among members of parliament, the latest being the killings in Auno, a village in northeastern Borno state where military restricts commuters from making overnight travels for security reasons. But 30 people were killed there, and that's just one in a series of attacks the region has suffered. Now lawmakers want constitutional procedures suspended to regain control and order in the region.
While commuters in their hundreds are waiting in the Aune village, the military left them to their fate or at best abandoned them.
Boko Haram is responsible for the decade-long insurgency. The incessant attacks have left tens of thousands dead and millions displaced from their homes. So the call for a state of emergency is seen as a welcome development.
It's a good thing that the National Assembly has declared state of emergency in the security sector of this country, because what has been going on is very troubling. Nigeria is practically sitting on the edge, and it's like what we're experiencing is a low-intensity war.
Experts also believe that it's about time to decentralize the policing system to deal with the recurring insecurity problems.
For us to have a restructured federation, have state police in place, and also have community policing in place. We cannot run away from it. The earlier, the better.
The call for a state of emergency puts a moral burden on President Muhammadu Buhari. At the height of violent attacks in 2013, former President Goodluck Jonathan imposed a state of emergency in 3 northeast states to quell the crisis in the region. Kelechi Amekalam, CGT in Abuja, Nigeria.
In April this year, it will be 6 years since the Nigeria-based Islamist insurgent group Boko Haram stormed a school in the remote town of Chibok in the northeast state of Borno and abducted 276 girls from their hostel. Some of the girls were later released, but more than 100 of them have remained in Boko Haram custody since then. The leader of the terror group, Abubakar Shekau, has now released a video in which he says the schoolgirls would be set free if the Nigerian government releases members of the sect currently in detention. Here's CGTN's Deji Badmas with more on that story.
The video was released shortly after President Muhammadu Buhari visited the Borno state capital of Maiduguri to sympathize with victims of a recent suspected Boko Haram attack. Abubakar Shekau's propaganda video is not as frequent as it used to be in the past, but in this latest one, he made specific reference to the Chibok schoolgirls and seemed to direct his message at the advocacy group Bring Back Our Girls, campaigning for the release of the girls. He said the girls would only be released if the Nigerian government released its members in detention. It's actually not the first time Shekau would be giving this condition. He'd done so in several videos in the past, but it's something I do not think the government would now want to consider. There are unconfirmed reports that in the past, the government actually tried to strike a negotiation with the sect along that line, but that it is not something that the government would now want to repeat. Besides, it's very doubtful Shekau himself is willing to negotiate with the government. All the same, the government may be analyzing this latest video further to see if it could pick up anything from it. For now, it's not given any reaction at all. Now, at the recent AU summit in Addis Ababa, President Buhari pledged to ensure all those being held captive by Boko Haram are released. Deji Badmos, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
Hopes of South Sudan pulling together a unity government ahead of a February 20th deadline are rapidly dimming as talks on Friday appeared to fall apart. The main sticking point between South Sudanese President Salva Kiir and his designated Vice President Riek Machar revolve around the number of states and their boundaries. CGTN's Patrick Oyet reports.
South Sudan's peace process is stalling over differences on the number and boundaries of states. President Kiir's group in Juba insists the country should maintain 32 states.
This decision is no longer the decision of the government, but the decision of the people of South Sudan, represented by all these participants who attended this meeting. Among them were the governors of the states.
Juba says it wants the government formed by February 22nd. Opposition groups are demanding that the country should have between 10 and 23 states before a new government is formed. The opposition accuses President Kiir of giving 17 out of the 32 states to his favored tribes. Then there is the issue of voting in the upper house of parliament, where each state is represented by one member. Opposition groups say they would lose out in any vote in the current scenario. Opposition groups also accuse President Kiir of using the 32 states to reward loyalists in return for votes scheduled for the end of the transitional period. But President Kiir's group says the 32 states are a popular demand of the people of the country and that it facilitates taking services closer to people. There are also communities which are against the 32 states because they say the land they traditionally lay claim to has now been given to other communities as part of the division of the country from 10 to 32 states. Experts say the public in Juba were not properly guided on what was expected of them.
The IGAD Council of Ministers resolution was very clear that the president has to choose between 23 states plus Abyei, or revert back to the whole 10 states. And that was where the president requested that he need to consult with his constituency, and that request was given by the IGAD, and that's what should have taken place today.
And some insist President Salva Kiir carries the main responsibility for moving ahead with peace.
The IGAD will not ask him about what those he consulted said. They will ask him what did he decide. So at the end, it is President Salva Kiir who would have to decide what is his choice. So that's where we are now. And whatever decision that he will make will tell us whether the government will be formed or it will not be formed.
President Kiir is expected to travel to Khartoum on Saturday, where he is scheduled to meet opposition leader Riek Machar and try to resolve the issue of number and boundaries of states. It is just days to the scheduled formation of a unity government, and an agreement on a way forward is vital. Patrick Oyet, CGTN, Juba, South Sudan.
About 500,000 Zimbabweans are in danger of starvation as the World Food Programme struggles to raise enough funds to assist them. The United Nations agency is $103 million short of the amount it needs to feed 4.1 million people experiencing the worst food shortages in the country's history.
The World Food Programme requires a staggering 200,000 metric tons of grain to disburse critical food aid to about 4 million people over the next 6 months. But it's not sure it can reach them all.
In order to scale up to the 4 million, we'll need additional resources. So we may not be able to reach the full number. We're planning to get up to 3.5 million this month. But we may not be able to continue that through April, but we may not be able to get to the full 4.1 million if we don't get additional resources.
The United Nations agency is $103 million short of its $212 million appeal to meet the hunger emergency, which shows no sign of letting up, as projections for the current season are also bleak.
Ideally, we would be hoping that harvest in April would begin to alleviate the food shortages in the country, but preliminary information indicates that the late arrival of the rains meant that many crops wilted in the fields. Farmers didn't have enough additional seeds to plant, and so we're not expecting good news about the upcoming harvest.
The Zimbabwean government is procuring its own grain under a separate state food assistance program. It recently lifted a ban on the importation of genetically modified maize as it attempts to mobilize the 110,000 metric tons of maize needed each month to make sure that nobody goes hungry. Farai Mwakutuya, CGTN, Harare, Zimbabwe.
Every 14th of February, people take time to celebrate Valentine's Day. In most parts of the world, the day is marked by couples who take the time out to express their love to each other. In Ghana, a non-governmental organization spent the day expressing love in a different way by distributing free food to street children. CGTN's Nabil Ahmed Rufai reports from Accra.
Spreading love on the streets of Accra, Adelaide Frimpoma is marking this year's Valentine's Day, distributing food to needy children.
Valentine's Day, what we think about is people going out with their lovers and husbands and fiancés and all kinds of people go out and have fun. So we thought that why don't we show some kind of love to these kids?
In Accra, many street children beg for money because their parents are unemployed and unable to cater for them, which is why Adelaide sees the need to feed them on this special day.
Valentine's Day means different things to different people. For these children, it's just another day on the streets, only made special with free food.
Child protection experts estimate that the number of street children in Accra alone is more than 900,000. Adelaide Frimpoma founded the non-governmental organization Street and Homeless Shelter Foundation in 2018 to help reduce the number of street children in Ghana.
If we get one woman who has 3 children, we at the end of the day, we get 3 children plus the woman of the street. Now, through this, we are going to do basic vocational, technical and digital skills training with institutions that we are partnering with.
Beyond feeding these street children, Adelaide Frimpoma is looking to get them off the streets soon. She says she's working to build a shelter to accommodate them. Until then, a little extra love with this happy Valentine wish. Nabil Ahmed Rufai, CGTN, Accra, Ghana.
To South Africa, where local model and current Miss Universe winner Zozibini Tunzi received a hero's welcome as she returned home. Many came out for this special event, her victory ride through the fun-lined streets of Cape Town. Tunzi is the third South African woman to win the title. CGTN's Travis Andrews was there and he felt the following report.
The sight, sounds and colors of a warm Cape. That's what greeted Miss Universe Zozibini Tunzi for her official victory parade in the Cape. Thousands of her adoring fans lined the streets to get a glimpse of the South African, who has made history as one of 5 black women who were concurrently crowned in the top beauty pageants of the world. She met with the first citizen of the city to share some of her post-victory thoughts, and so did the mayor himself.
We are so proud of you.
Thank you so much.
Of your achievements.
Thank you.
You're a real star for South Africa and also for Cape Town and the Western Cape.
Since winning the title in 2019, Tunzi has garnered international attention as the woman with poise, intelligence and substance. She was also voted as the most influential young South African of that year, but she still remains fairly grounded.
What I love about where I come from is the humility and ubuntu of where I come from. I think everyone who's grown up in a village will attest to the togetherness of it all, and I think I am who I am today just because of that.
As an important public figure, she now also plans to devote more of her time to important social issues, such as women and children's rights.
My message is really to both South African men and women to start having these conversations about gender-based violence and educating ourselves. And I think most importantly, educating the youth, the young boy child, because that is the boy who's going to grow up to be the man that we're looking forward to in the future.
The 26-year-old, though, was in for a treat because thousands of Cape Townians came out to show their support and pay homage to her excellence on the global stage. Which means she will also reserve a special place in the hearts of many as a proud South African with deep roots that will always remain firmly entrenched. Travis Andrews, CGTN, Cape Town.
Coming up in business news. The UN Economic Commission on Africa hosts the 3rd Africa Business Forum.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues for taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Zimbabwe says sanctions imposed on it by Western countries are making it hard to develop much-needed energy projects. President Emmerson Mnangagwa says a shift to clean energy in the country is difficult due to lack of finance. He was speaking at the 3rd Africa Business Forum hosted by the UN Economic Commission on Africa in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. CGTN's Coletta Wanjohi tells us more.
These leaders are developing a strategy to see Africa shift towards clean energy. But Zimbabwe says it is unable to do so due to lack of funding.
If we had no sanctions, we would speak about attracting investment into the country. But because of the constraints of sanctions on us, we depend on our own domestic resources in the country and also from the private sector, global private sector, who are not constrained by the sanctions imposed on us.
But even for countries which don't face that problem, it is still difficult to attract funding for clean energy projects.
The first thing is to really look at the progressive nature of our tax system. Because again, you know, a lot of governments would say, oh, we can't pay for it, we can't afford it. The second one, and it's something that we did in Senegal, is essentially, and it's the same in France and many other countries, you have to criminalize non-payment of tariffs. Because the reason governments subsidize is because nobody pays the energy bill. And so when the energy bill is not paid, the government has to step in. When the government steps in, the utility falls.
But climate change activists say there also needs to be a focus on education.
Part of our model at Little Ones Go Green is to make sure that while we are thinking changes, let's start with the children at a nascent age. Because once you inculcate it in them at a tender age, then by the time they are working for the UN, working for so many other non-state actors or conglomerates and corporate companies, the mentality will have changed. They will have grown with an inculcation of thinking about conservation.
The UN Economic Commission for Africa is helping willing African countries to access financing for clean energy projects. The UN Economic Commission for Africa is creating dialogue between African public and private sectors so that member states can get financiers of mega energy projects. Economic experts advise government to create relevant incentives and more favorable investment policies that will encourage private sector to take the risk to venture into the energy investment. Coletta Njohi, CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Some economic activities in China have been halted due to the ongoing coronavirus outbreak. Some African experts, however, say the outbreak is unlikely to cause lasting damage to China's economy.
I think the Chinese government and people are very resilient and they are strong enough to contain the epidemic. And in due course, I have that particular conviction and believe that sooner the coronavirus will come or will become history. So I don't think in the long run, the coronavirus will serve as an impediment to the Chinese economy. And once it resumes, then you see that particular usual boom, from the Chinese economy.
I do not accept that Chinese economy will suffer mortally from this outbreak. What I know, Chinese economy is resilient. Chinese economy has a kind of several internal shock absorbers to overcome challenges of this nature. So the prediction about very deep problem with the economy is, in my view, a non-starter. In this case, I am sure China economy has sufficient internal mechanism to maintain the momentum of its growth.
With many Chinese companies and employees not back at work yet, manufacturers and entrepreneurs testing new and innovative products are feeling the pressure. CGTN reporter Liu Yang met with one such entrepreneur and shows us how he's not letting the health epidemic wreck his dreams.
This delivery robot is in high demand, contactless, self-driving, and doesn't easily get lost. Liu Zhiyong, a Tsinghua University graduate, is one of its designers. In this messy but typical robotics high-tech firm, he's good at multitasking, doing video conferences with tech teams and taking countless incoming calls, all while we're filming. His top priority is to push production along urgently and to find the means to manufacture the robots on time for clients, despite many manufacturers not yet back at work. Some say we're expecting more of the transformation of the offline delivery model. How high is the demand for product right now?
Orders are now about 6 times higher than they used to be. Our engineers have been working remotely and we hope to start production next week and solve the current supply and demand problem.
It could be a dilemma. Because of the coronavirus epidemic, manufacturers don't appear ready for it yet. But things have to push forward. We followed him to a production lab where his new design is expected to materialize soon. The lab belongs to IM Wei, located in China's Silicon Valley, known as Zhongguancun. They provide 7 services, including scheme design and trial production for innovative companies.
Their company is manufacturing and testing the main control boards in the robot, the structural parts of the exterior. We work 12 hours a day before the Spring Festival, but now many manufacturers haven't resumed work. Hopefully, we will see a gradual increase in demand.
The advantage of this company is it has created an innovative eco-chain community centered on the industrialization of innovative technologies. SMEs can book services online with fast speed and efficient costs. While we're fighting the epidemic nationwide, an economic battle is unfolding as companies resume work. Experts suggest a further reduction of tax burden on SMEs and reducing the cost of financing and help them get over the difficulties. Experts point out that ensuring the stability of the industrial chain and the supply chain is vital for the survival of enterprises. For high-tech companies, the resumption of manufacturing may be a make-or-break situation for their business. Liu Yang, CGTN, Beijing.
Now for a splash of color and creativity from this year's International Public Art Festival taking place in Cape Town, South Africa. The event brings together some of the best local and international street artists. They specialize in transforming buildings, homes and walls. Here's CGTN's Travis Andrews reporting from South Africa's mother city.
It's a trend that has taken over Cape Town. Gone are the days where large street murals are seen as antisocial works of artistic expression. Now they're increasingly giving the mother city its unique identity. The International Public Art Festival is one platform that tries to promote the transformation of street art to more mainstream art, with 25 of the best local and international artists all creating large murals that are not only uniquely artistic, but tries to advance collective community expression.
The theme this year is digitalization. So we are asking the artists to express themselves on what they understand by digitalization. Nowadays we use computers, laptop, internet. People that are not using it are losing somehow, and because it works in our benefit, in our advantage. So how can we use those tools that we have nowadays to the best, to perform at our best, to live at our best and not to be abused by them? So that the artwork that have been created kind of express that, and they become conversation pieces.
Now in its fourth installation, the event continues to draw on the experience of various street artists specializing in various art forms, including large impact pieces such as these multi-story murals or smaller sketches with a more contemporary feel. Community involvement has also been critical to the growth of the festival, and some of the works speak to issues that still plague many here, that of high costs of data in the country.
The theme for the festival is digitalization, right? And we look at that, but we also need to consider access. So here with the walls that we paint with Mbalemnyama art, we're just saying that can we have free Wi-Fi on our walls so that we can have access to the internet, we can have access to anything that we want to, and especially for the young ones.
There's also been a marked increase in the amount of interest shown by government departments, NGOs and other international organizations who are seeing the transformative role art can play in South Africa. These public artworks are not just visually striking for this community, but they also have a strong social upliftment message to them as well.
As artists, we carry out like very important messages, especially to community, and we've got a very creative way of actually taking out information that is within our times right now, you know. So as an artist, it's a beautiful experience to be part of this because it also helps you step out of your comfort zone and interact with the community that you don't actually normally interact with, and you get to give them a message of, you know, good hope or goodwill or, you know, anything like that.
For now, the festival remains an open event, which encourages the public to walk the streets, talk to the artists, and appreciate the beauty of public art in all its forms. Travis Andrews, CGTN, Cape Town.
You're watching Africa Live, still ahead after the break. We sample an artistic expression that involves oversized woven structures in South Africa.
Join us in Global Business and see Africa through our eyes.
The volcanic island of Reunion, rising over 300 meters from the ocean, is a hiker's paradise. Patrice Zulm is a local hiking guide who accompanies clients to remote parts of the island. His destinations include the Mafat Volcanic Circle, named after a leader of the so-called Moron, or escaped slaves. Reunion is increasingly threatened by overdevelopment, increased tourism, and overpopulation. Patrice is passionate about preserving the natural heritage of the island and strives to share the importance of this with others.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Germany is holding the 56th Munich Security Conference with world leaders coming together to discuss the latest hot international issues. Natalie Carney has the latest from Munich.
World leaders have come to use the intimate setting of the Munich Security Conference to speak frankly. Conference chairman Wolfgang Ischinger opened the event with a scathing rebuke to the 500 heads of state and decision makers, blaming the decline in global security on the age of impunity.
People are dying. Arms races are heating up. And the planet is warming ever more quickly. It's not enough for you, the most powerful people in the world, to shrug your shoulders and say that this is just the way things are. No! The present state of global insecurity is absolutely unacceptable. It is dangerous, and it breeds, apparently, more hate and conflict rather than cooperation and peace.
Germany's president also took a swipe at unilateralism, indirectly accusing bigger powers of stirring up global mistrust that could threaten a new nuclear arms race.
We are witnessing an increasing destructive dynamics in international politics. Year by year, we are moving further away from the goal of international cooperation in order to create a more peaceful world. The result is uncertainty, unpredictability, confrontation, and lost trust.
This rise in protectionism is being seen in national budget spending, according to an annual survey by the International Institute for Strategic Studies.
According to the latest military balance report released on the first day of the Munich Security Conference, 2019 saw the largest year-on-year increase in global defense spending in the last decade. But we're living in a changing world where beefed-up armies aren't the only threat to global peace and security.
Climate change, 5G technology, and the coronavirus were also leading points of Friday's discussions. On the sidelines, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau reportedly pressed Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif again for a full investigation into the Ukrainian Airlines passenger plane shot down by Iran last month. 57 Canadians were among the 176 people killed.
The promise I made to Canadians was to find answers for them, to ensure that Iran leads a full and rigorous investigation with the international community to hold to account the people responsible for this. And we are working with Iran. We have to work with Iran in order to get those answers for Canadians, and that is my focus.
The first phase of a peace plan for Afghanistan, which would begin with a 7-day reduction in violence between the U.S. and the Taliban, was confirmed during a meeting among Afghanistan's President Ashraf Ghani, U.S. Defense Secretary Mark Esper, and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Other bilateral meetings saw Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi hold talks with Austrian Chancellor Sebastian Kurz, as well as Canadian Foreign Minister François-Philippe Champagne. Wang will address the conference on Saturday with the coronavirus and data protection policies all part of the conversation. Natalie Carney, CGTN, Munich.
In South Africa, one artist is gaining recognition for his oversized woven structures, which take the shape of vaguely familiar entities. CGTN's Yulisa Njamela met with the artist to show us some of their work.
Peninah is a multimedia artist who is particularly known for his rope sculptures. His work is quite unique and very different from what we usually encounter.
His work is presented with familiar structures and recognizable characteristics.
There's one thing that I love about sculpture, which I don't get that fulfillment in other mediums that I use, I think with sculpture, it's a three-dimensional thing. You know, you're creating something that, you know, you're creating this figure that stands next to you. So there is that human interaction, you know, within it, and it's amazing to actually work on something. It feels complete or whole by working around it. You know, I remember I was telling somebody that I actually even speak to these guys. You know, I talk to them a lot, and you know, it's really a conversational journey with a sculpture, because from nothing then you have this figure standing in front of you. Then I just find it, I mean, the interaction, the labor, the physicality that it demands as well. Going to sleep, it just feels like, yeah, I worked. It was a worth it day.
He hastens to further emphasize that this, however, does not mean that he neglects his other form of art.
And don't get me wrong, I think I love my drawings so much. I love, you know, printmaking, these murals that I'll do occasionally, and other mediums that I do. And especially when I've worked so long in sculpture, then I start missing other things, because there's always something new to discover in any of these mediums.
Kensani hails from one of South Africa's rural provinces, Limpopo. While his artistry talent became evident very early on in his life, he had no representation that mattered.
There wasn't so much, you just knew about Leonardo da Vinci, people that lived 500 years ago. Yeah, even far, you know, it's not a reality, this thing, to you, because you only stumble upon it from here and there, but not necessarily, you don't see it alive in front, you don't see anybody doing it.
But he was undeterred and followed his passion. He tells us that he prefers to produce works that originate from his heart.
I'm inspired to make new commentary all the time, or even if it's the same commentary, but just do it in a way that it satisfies me at the end. You know, I don't think it's always about the consumer. You know, I prefer work coming from me and from my heart and from my understanding. And I think, yeah, I'm that guy who gets, you know, a whole lot of ideas, and there isn't time or maybe not enough equipment or materials to do it. So hence I'm like, my solos are like, you know, they generate slower than a normal pace.
Kensani is now keen to ensure that his art is accessible to communities who often cannot afford the privilege of purchasing any kind of artwork. You're listening to Jamela for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
You're watching Africa Live. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back with more news.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa.